The Overwatch League could have been the crown jewel of esports with lofty dreams and expectations, but now the reality is that the league's teams are allegedly lawyering up to start a collective bargaining process against Activision-Blizzard. Now, why would the teams need to do this, and is this the beginning of the end for the Overwatch League? Hey everyone, just a quick reminder that we have merch available. I know Valentine's Day is coming up, so you might want to get something for that special someone, or if you're like me, alone, for yourself. Single people, I don't know if we'll ever find someone, but at least we can get a nice sweatshirt. Activision-Blizzard, Overwatch, and trouble. 3 words that never seem to be able to be separated from one another, and the latest OWL news is no exception. According to a report by Jacob Wolf, a majority of teams in the OWL have retained British law firm Sheridan's to, quote, start a collective bargaining process against the league after years of high operating costs and continually missed promises on revenue. To put this in simple terms, apparently a lot of your favorite Overwatch teams are lawyering up because they want some sort of compensation after what they believe are years of high investment with inadequate returns. In Wolf's report, he says the aim of the discussions is to, quote, for the teams to be awarded some sort of economic relief to promote sustainability after each franchise spent somewhere between $7.5 to $10 million in franchise payments over the past 6 years, as well as more than $1 million in operating costs each year to maintain their teams. And that's not to mention the reported $20 million teams had to pay to secure an Overwatch League's franchise slot in Season 1, with a further $30 to $60 million for Season 2. Just think about the operating costs of a team. Of course, you have to pay your players, but then you also have to pay your coaches, analysts, team managers, social media managers, content people, etc., etc., etc. There's a lot more that goes into a team than just your favorite DPS player. Wolf reported that the decision to collectively organize was in part led by Overactive Media, the group that owns the Toronto Defiant. When theScore Esports reached out to them to confirm the validity of the report, a spokesperson for Overactive Media said, the teams in the league are partners. We have always worked together and continue to do so. We have a collective interest in the Overwatch League and its success. Nothing material has changed on this front. We also reached out for comment from Sheridan, the law firm allegedly representing these teams, but at the time of publishing, we have not heard back. So it looks like a lot of the OWL teams are in a bad spot. And to understand maybe how they got there, we gotta go back to the inception of the league. Apparently, like we said earlier, the price tag to join the Overwatch League was massive, but eventually organizations did cough up the cash needed to create your favorite teams like the Toronto Defiant, Florida Mayhem, San Fran Shock, etc. Cloud9 CEO Jack said about joining the Overwatch League that the asks to be a part of the Overwatch League are large. There's a big commitment in getting through the door. People are scared of change and intimidated to take the risk into getting something new. While others are scared, I'm going to be moving forward into something I think is the evolution of esports. That's been Cloud9's approach since day one. The monetary risks that Jack was willing to take was to evolve esports into a new meta, aka act akin to traditional sports. The touted goal of the Overwatch League was to be as big as possible and, keywording here, be sustainable. Comparisons to the National Football League were thrown around. All of this to say that people and organizations were pouring money into this league, and it wasn't for no reason. It was reported that Activision-Blizzard showed potential buyers that the league's projected revenue would be $22 million by 2018, $50 million in 2019, and then $125 million in 2020. The OWL was a hell of an ambitious venture. It was a dream to realize what esports could be. It was clear it was supposed to be the titan of the industry, the giant in this space. But just because it was ambitious does not mean it was guaranteed. While Season 1 of the OWL was promising by apparently exceeding the $22 million in projected revenue expectations, after that was a very rocky road. The league's revenue did not live up to the projections. According to a Bloomberg article, teams struggled to make money on their own, butts were not being put into seats, and fans weren't into buying merch, concessions, etc. Allegedly, Activision-Blizzard would hand out free tickets to students or bus employees to the Blizzard Arena in Burbank, California if CEO Bobby Kotick or any other VIPs were coming to see a game. Reportedly, the OWL seemed to rely heavily on Bobby Kotick's vision and support. And apparently that support began to dwindle over time until Microsoft's attempted purchase of Activision-Blizzard, a $69 billion deal, which the FTC is currently trying to block. Then when the COVID pandemic started in 2020, while apparently some teams said the lack of live events was better for their wallet, Activision-Blizzard reportedly allowed teams to push off payments of fees, as well as awarding teams $2 million with the agreement that the teams would not sue the company. In March 2021, Activision-Blizzard laid off employees who were part of the esports and, quote, other live live events, with the company saying, "Players are increasingly choosing to connect with our games digitally, and the esports team, much like traditional sports, entertainment, and broadcasting industries, has had to adapt its business due to the impact the pandemic has had on live events." A little aside, layoffs were not and are not uncommon. Just this week of writing, Microsoft announced they're going to lay off about 10,000 employees, and apparently Riot Games laid off an unknown number. While they aren't uncommon, layoffs can be an indicator of an institution's poor economic health. And then later in 2021, as I'm sure we all know, the harassment lawsuit saga began. The California Department of Fair Employment and Housing sued Activision-Blizzard for alleged widespread harassment and discrimination of female employees at the company. This led to major sponsors of the Overwatch League like Coca-Cola, T-Mobile, and State Farm to reassess their position. As of March 2022, there's apparently not a single visible sponsor for the league, and I cannot find any mention of one on the official website. And we are now entering an era in which crypto is no longer seemingly viable, and venture capital investment in esports is the lowest it has ever been since 2016, apart from 2020. No brand interest is coupled with a dipping popular interest. The OWL continues to trend downwards in terms of viewership. As Francisco Carrizo writes, the league is losing popularity around the world, something we can see from the fall of popularity of the regional broadcasts. The Overwatch League definitely needs to reinvent itself. It doesn't help that after Twitch paid $90 million for exclusive streaming rights, a deal was made to exclusively broadcast the OWL on YouTube. While the deal made Activision Blizzard reportedly $160 million, the move was criticized and viewership declined. All of this leads us right back to the original Jacob Wolf report. It is clear the OWL was not the success it was made out to be. So now you have teams pushing against Activision Blizzard saying, what are you going to do about this? Apparently, for them, they've invested tens of millions into a vision that they were sold on, but that vision has not come true. Now, apparently some of them are operating at a loss. Perhaps if Activision Blizzard had been more realistic with their projections and desires for the league design and infrastructure, this all could have been avoided. As Will Bettingfield wrote for Wired, esports isn't dying. Investors are now in the reality of the consequence for being sold on, quote, wildly exaggerated expectations. It was only a few days ago that Arnold Herr, CEO of Gen G, the parent company of Seoul Dynasty, said, "I've been saying the esports winter is coming, but even I didn't think it would be this cold. Now I've changed my forecast and think 30% of esports teams worldwide won't make it in the next 2 years." While he is speaking in the context of the LCK, his broader point of the esports ecosystem is entirely applicable to the OWL. The OWL will never be what Bobby Kotick apparently dreamt it would be. Now, the league has to deal with the reality of its own teams apparently deciding to collectively bargain against it. And continually missed promises on revenue. Can you do an N-board during a train section? Can you even hear the train, Colten? Can you let me know? Because I feel like I'm gaslighting myself and the entire company. Because I'm like, oh, there's a train coming. It's definitely being picked up by the mic. But then sometimes I listen back, I'm like, is it?